So something that came up again with Robert in your conversation with him was something funny too. And since Taoists like to wear some awesome hats, you were talking to Robert about being a Taoist. You can't do it on the weekends. It's got to be that 24/7 commitment. And so, Jack, you wear a lot of hats. You're a father. You run your own business there in Boulder. Husband, working with the organization, martial artists, all these different things. Is there something in your Taoist practice that becomes a thread to tie a lot of these things together?
That's a thought-provoking question. I would say this, like, I spend the majority of my day thinking about what it is to be Taoist, and being a practicing Taoist, there are like legs to a stool, so to speak. One leg is meditation, and one leg is precepts, and then one leg is I'm going to call it ritual, but it could involve a lot of things. It can involve being at your altar. It can involve reading scriptures. It can involve doing ritual for other people. I'll just leave it kind of loose at that. But there's those three legs, and I feel like you have to have all three legs all the time. The two that I feel like you can't let go are the meditation and the precepts. And the precepts is an interesting thing. Like I think when people first start learning them, they sound like commandments, like don't kill, don't steal, don't lie, that kind of stuff. But what it really is are those are guardrails to life, So, and if as a Longman Taoist, we believe in karma, and we believe in cyclic rebirth, and so if we also believe that being born as a human is an incredibly lucky and rare thing.
Yeah.
And so while you're here as a human, it's one of the if not the only opportunity as a living being you have to create like good karma. And so if I have these guideposts of don't kill, don't steal, don't lie, like that, then I'm not going to sow more bad karma, because the bad karma is the kind of thing that would make you be reborn again in the animal realm or something like that. But if I look deeper at those guideposts, it's not really just about killing, but it's also about nourishing life. It's not about just not lying, but it's also about being like trustworthy and honorable and whatnot. And so I think about those a lot in my daily, because you can be anything then. You can be a husband, you can be a martial arts teacher, you can be a doctor, and you're just living like the most virtuous life you can. And that virtue then creates, benefit for everybody, not just you, because if I do good things, then those good things sort of spill out into other people, and maybe they are inspired consciously or unconsciously to do good things. And so trying to live by those things, those precepts, or, as a Longman Taoist, like one of the things we think about with the Tao is itself cosmic goodness. It's like it's ultimate benevolence. No matter what you say about it being empty and the emptiness beyond empty, we also feel like that in and of itself is complete benevolence or goodness. And so if I'm going to be in alignment with the Tao, then I have to also be in alignment with cosmic goodness. So that means living a virtuous life. That means just doing good things, like, carry a few extra bucks around. If you see a homeless person, you give them $1. If that's all you can afford, that's all you can afford. Say nice things to people. Like just being a kind person is that. Then when it circles back to meditation and you're sitting there on your cushion, because I've met plenty of people who are serious meditators who are assholes. Can I swear in here?
Yeah, you sure
absolutely.
can. Yeah, and trust me, we've met them too. We've met them too.
Yeah, right. So meditating isn't the key then to realization, because Because if the Tao itself is cosmic goodness and I want to realize the Tao, how can I realize the Tao if my mind and my heart are full of like anger and hatred and things like that? The only way I can is if my mind is full of virtue and benevolence. So those things are spontaneously arising from me. So if I practice them all day long, then I notice that if I meditate, my mind actually goes to better places. I don't think about, God, my neighbor blew his leaves in my yard. That dog barks all the time. That patient didn't pay me, like whatever. Like your mind is able to like constantly conjure up goodness, And so even when you're put in a situation where it's like, anger is one of the poisons, right? And so instead of embracing anger, like I can't stand that pop culture idea of like embrace your anger and this and that, because I really feel like it generates more anger. But instead, if we counter that anger with what would be its contrapositive, like humanity, like, just counter that with like compassion and humanity. All of a sudden you feel better. The situation gets better, So like the long and short of this answer is, kind of living by those things allows me to wear every hat and still be, in alignment with cosmic goodness, or try to be. I mean, it's an aspiration. We're only humans, And I think, for me, with the martial arts thing, like this is I have a very complicated relationship with martial arts now, because it's really easy to also cultivate violence, because you're fighting, sparring, thinking about applications. Like it's really easy for that to cultivate violence in you,
Sure.
I mean, I've trained with a lot of people, and you guys have too, where you can tell that like the training of the martial art is making them a worse person,
Yeah.
because it's sowing violence in them. And I think learning to disconnect the violence from the movement and from the thing, and not get really embracing it. That's a tough one, and I have a very complicated relationship with it. And I think about it a lot. And I've gone through some periods of time where I'm like, I can't practice this because I'm thinking about like the violence of it too much, and I don't feel like that's good for me. And I'll maybe put it down and just do qigong for like a month or two, and like ride my bike for exercise or something, just to like kind of come to terms with what that is, because I don't want to be a more violent person. I was having this conversation with my son actually this morning. We were on a hike and we were talking about reactions, and there's this idea, right? When we're training, you want to have that almost instantaneous unconscious reaction, right? Where somebody like hurls a punch at you and you don't even your mind skips thinking about it and goes straight into like the block and the counter or whatever. But like, what if that's your mom that taps you on the shoulder, and you like whirl around and smack her in the face like that? You don't want that kind of unconscious reaction. So what do we do about that? How do we work with that? How do we, train ourselves to like be nonviolent in that situation, or our reaction to be not one of instantaneously hurting somebody? Because if it goes there physically, it's also easy to go there with words. Somebody says something to you and you escalate it with words right away. And, saying it, as far as we're concerned, saying it is good as doing it. So, we think about it this way, punching somebody in the face, is not a good thing. Thinking about punching somebody in the face is equally as bad, because my mind is already in that same violent state. And so we have to find a way to switch that and think about it in some sort of benevolent or kind or forgiving or compassionate way. And I say that like it's easy, but I think that's the challenge, though.
Right. Yeah.
That's like one of the challenges of being human. So.
Yeah. Well said.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. Thank you.
Sure.
I only have a couple more questions for you today, Jack. I know you got to get back to wearing other hats. Owen, did you have anything else for Jack?
No. I've kind of got a finish or follow up question, but go ahead, man.
I wanted to ask you about Wu Wei. I don't know. That's one of the big fancy Taoist words I know. Do you associate that, or do you work with that in your practice? Because I think it's kind of a word that we hear that's tossed around here on the TikTok Taoists in the West, if you will. And a gentleman that's, devoted to bringing this beautiful religion from China to America. Do you work on do you guys work with the concept of Wu Wei in your practices?
Yeah, Wu Wei. So, I think that's a term that's really misunderstood a lot, because in the West, a lot of times people will think of Wu Wei as non-action, right? They'll think of it as like, so that means I don't do anything. I just like let it flow and let it happen. And that's how you get that sort of like that hippy dippy Taoist where it's like, oh, that means all I got to do to be realized is I can go chill by the creek and I can just like do nothing. And that's Wu Wei, man. That's Wu Wei that's a Wu Wei that's in the middle of illusion. So we think about it this way: as a human on this earth who's like just an ordinary person, where we live in illusion, we're the product of our imaginations and desires, we're the product of passion and aggression. So Wang Chongyang would call ordinary people, he would say we're marionettes, or we're the walking dead. We're not trained to understand the Tao, and we're just stuck in thinking that the things we want are important, and our emotions are important, and our senses are important. So we end up being like, man, I love the way this tastes, and there it is, and I'm going to go eat it. Like that's how a lot of people will think of Wu Wei, but that's all illusion. That's not real. And so what Wu Wei really is supposed to be is non-action, meaning that we're complete spontaneity, right? But the spontaneity we're looking for is the spontaneity of our higher self, our Xing, we call it, our inner nature. And our inner nature, everybody has this inner nature, and it's akin to the Tao. And so what we're thinking about then is we want our spontaneity, our Wu Wei, to be in alignment with the Tao. So what that means is somebody says something mean to me, and I just spontaneously offer like a compassionate word and maybe an apology. I don't think about it. I don't combat it in any way, So all of those things that would resonate with the Tao, that benevolence, righteousness, propriety, etc., all of those things, we just are spontaneously that way. That's true Wu Wei. That's what we're talking about. So what it would mean then, I think the quick and dirty of it would be spontaneously acting of your higher self. That's Wu Wei. But until then,
that sounds like a lot of cultivation.
Yeah,
sounds like a lot of cultivation to get there.
Yo-Wei. Exactly. Okay. So we use the precepts, for example. Those are the guardrails that keep us from doing anything stupid until those. So we start out with, hey, I'm just not going to kill today, to pretty soon you're like, you just it wouldn't even cross your mind to like step on a bug, or to like kill. You just doesn't even cross your mind. It's not something you would even think to do. You find yourself like you got mice. You just find yourself buying live traps to catch them without even thinking about it. That would be in alignment with the Tao. Mm-hmm. That's a tricky question to answer that fast, but I hope that makes some sense.
Yeah, totally. I think you did fantastic. My final question to pick on you for the day, and this actually might get into and you can describe a little bit more, because I think you've done a great job as far as describing the Parting Clouds Institute. But let's say that I'm a Westerner. Let's say I'm a bus driver in Boulder, for the hypothetical. And I've been always interested about taking the next step into Daoism. What do you think would be either a good piece to read, a great resource? Because it sounds like you guys have great resources there at Parting Clouds. What would be a good stepping stone for me to get into the kiddie pool if I was interested in looking at Daoism more seriously?
Yeah, sign up for class with Parting Clouds.
You got it.
Well, no, I mean, and the reason I say that is because our first year of curriculum, we start from the big and work our way to the small. We start with historical context and work our way through Taoist movements and then practices, all with the common thread of working towards what it's like to be a 21st century Transgen Longman practitioner who lives in Boulder and drives a bus, because it is that's what I would say would be the ideal. That there are a lot of great books, and if you have zero understanding, I think reading books by Livia Cohn, for example, Livia's stuff, she has so many books, and she has a lot of really great sort of beginner Taoism books. And Louis Komyathi, for example, his Taoist Traditions book is a really great beginner Taoism book. And it doesn't do the thing that a lot of them do, where it's like, let's talk about yin and yang and 5 elements and stuff, because those are just Chinese natural sciences. Buddhists use those, Confucians use those, Taoists use those. They're just that was just science, But instead, they talk about what is the Taoist perspective on the world? What's the goal of being a Taoist? Why would you even want to be one? And then what does being one look like? Those sorts of things. Those are the questions that you would want to see in the book. And I think Livia does a really good job, and Louis does a pretty good job also, putting that stuff out there. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. I know I dodged that question just a little bit, but
no, I think that's a great answer.
Yeah, I was going to say, I guess my final question is, what's next for you? Sort of maybe, just in terms, the next 6 months, next year, the next few years, do you have any projects you're working on? I know you've just got a lot of irons in the fire, so I was curious.
Yeah. No, thanks for asking that. So we just recently published, our translation of the Fibers. So right now we have 4 books available on Amazon, Josh Painter and I, and they're scriptural translations. So we just published that. I'm actually working on a student ritual manual for Parting Clouds members right now, and we're finishing that up. Those are, as far as translation projects, those are ongoing. This fall, we're hosting a retreat in Massachusetts for Parting Clouds. It's going to be a 4-day retreat, which will involve some Taoist temple practices and meditation and whatnot. Those are a couple things that are, coming up. We've got some public teaching things that we're working on. We're actually creating some one-off classes for people who are interested in Taoism, but maybe, they're not sure they want to sign up and take class every week. So it might be just one-off classes. We're actually, Josh and I are in the middle of creating those classes and figuring out what the curriculum will look like for each of them. We're hoping to finish that this summer. We just got back from China about a month ago. We did a quick trip over to Joko City in Louis County which is where Lao Tzu was born. And we were there for this big ancestor worshiping festival. We were invited as U.S. ambassadors to that. And so, we went to that, and, we're still kind of downloading that because it's partly related to the Chinese Taoist Association, and our relationship with them and what they want us to do coming up in the future, but also with what's called the World Federation of Taoists, which are Taoist organizations in multiple countries around the world. So, Australia and Indonesia and Taiwan and
wow.
That's an organization that we're part of as well, and that's brand new and just getting started. Wow. And so that is probably one of the things that I'm excited to see unfold. I'm not sure what that's going to look like, because I know China has attempted this in the past. But I think what they really want are consistent, sort of solid Taoist education in other countries, instead of it being kind of sort of fly by night like it's been in the past. So I'm excited to see what that actually looks like in the future. Those are some of the big things coming up. We'll see. I've got a couple of invitations to do some martial arts seminars on the West Coast. We'll see if I do those or not. And then, just local people, working with local folk. Wow. I'm sure I forgot something. And I'll be like, dang, I forgot to tell them this.
That's plenty. That's plenty. That's awesome. Plenty. And we're going to put links to the Party Clouds Institute. And if you want, we could actually put a link to your local practice if there's any Coloradans listening and looking for treatment, if that'd be awesome. All right with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate that.
Jack, thank you. And thank you for your time today. This has been
I really appreciate
it. Awesome conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
More than informed. Hey, and we need to we'll do the Snarfs visit sometime.
Yep.
Let's do it. That'd be a blast. I'd love to.
Yeah. Sounds great. Thank you so much.
Jack, have a blessed day, my friend.
Yep.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.